Hi, my name is Noam Yakar. This is my project, an autonomous drone for water conservation and irrigation location optimization. So first, water consumption is a problem globally, obviously, and there's increasing use of water, and it's simply inevitable. Almost 98% of water on Earth is unfit for use or consumption because it's not fresh water. This means that while there's a great consumption of water, there's little alternative to prevent this water usage. So you can see this pie chart right here that tells us that in the United States, 33% of fresh water is used for irrigation. So irrigation is one of the main uses of water in the United States, and it's definitely little alternative to prevent water usage is definitely a problem we need to solve. So conventional water conservation technology looks like this, a drip irrigation system. And there are several disadvantages that make this system not the correct way to conserve water. Couple of things, starting out with time. It's a time-consuming installation. It's expensive. It's $2 to $4 per square foot and provides uneven irrigation. The plastic tubes that are used to try to drive down the cost of these systems negatively affect soil fertility. And the overarching idea that I was trying to address is that there's no ubiquitous system that integrates sensor data from plants, reduces water usage, and maintains plant health. So the new solution that I created was an autonomous agricultural drone. Would be compared to a conventional irrigation system, a highly sensitive, easily implementable drone that does two things: reduces water consumption incrementally, decreases water usage while monitoring plant health, and monitors plant health using sensors like a soil moisture sensor, and looks at plant health by looking at leaf segmentations, image classification with a trained algorithm, NDVI, all which I'll explain in the next slides. So NDVI is Normalized Difference Vegetation Index. And what does this mean? So when we're trying to measure the health of the plant or just detect abnormal changes in the growth process of vegetation, we have to use this index to tell us what the health looks like. So basically what we do is that we compare the amount of absorbed visible red light and near infrared light reflected. So we use a sensor called a PIR sensor that you can see right here, which reflects near infrared rays and visible red rays. And we see what the quantity of rays that the vegetation is absorbing, and based on those values, we can understand whether the plant is healthy or unhealthy. So we have to understand two real structures in vegetation: chlorophyll and the cell structure. So chlorophyll absorbs red light. So in a healthy plant with a lot of chlorophyll, we want to see very little red light reflected or visible red reflected. That's why only 8% is being reflected here. And the cell structure reflects most or some of the infrared light. So we want to see 50% absorbed and 50% reflected. And you can see the difference in values in the unhealthy plant, that you see that the absorbed and reflected values are far different. So now we understand that a healthy plant has certain values and unhealthy plant has certain values, and that's how we identify plant health. Using this PIR sensor you can see on the right, and the equation for NDVI, Normalized Difference Vegetation Index, is the near infrared light minus the red light value over the near infrared light value plus the red light value. So next is the flight controller design. This is basically the brain of the drone, how it controls all the motors, the sensors. So I actually designed this. So here's the schematic for the flight controller. Just a couple of things. So you see this voltage regulator. It basically powers the flight controller. Here you can see the PCB design, or printed circuit board design. And this is my original schematic. So a couple other things to note: this resonator basically produces oscillations that gives the drone an effective clock so it can record time series data. We have this gyroscope, which I would argue is the most important part of this PCB or flight controller. It essentially tells me, or the user, the computer, the orientation of the drone in space, key values like pitch, tilt, and yaw, which are very important to know how the drone is traveling, is the drone stabilized in space, things like that. So now let's get into the CAD design and the drone images. So the frame I designed in AutoCAD and was printed in carbon fiber. So you can see here the CAD designs, just the frame, the top and the bottom part, and then combined, and then this is the actual drone. So just wanted to highlight a couple of things. You have this PIR sensor here that measures NDVI, the soil moisture sensor, which I'll get into a little bit later. You can see all of these: the drone motors, the propellers, the speed controller, which basically tells the drone what direction to move, how is the drone going to move. And it's important to note that the motors that are moving clockwise are opposite from each other, and the motors that are moving counterclockwise are opposite from each other. Other things like the first-person view camera, the video transmission, the receiver for the drone's autonomy are all there. And those are some of the parts of the drone that are really important to note. So now the irrigation system installation. So you can see here, 6 PVC pipes were set up with holes in PVC, 5 millimeters in diameter in my backyard. And essentially what this did was distribute water to different plants with this circuit. So you have an Arduino microcontroller here with a water pump, battery, water pressure regulator, and a breadboard. And so each of these is set up in each PVC pipe. And for the control data that we were measuring, the water distribution was consistent. Every plant was getting a certain amount of water every day, but with the data that we were recording with the drone was able to determine and skew the amount of water that each plant was getting based on monitored plant health. And that's really the center of the experimentation, whether the drone can adjust the water distribution for the plant to improve plant health or maintain plant health while reducing water usage. So really, this is how the drone works. These are assigned drone routes to calibrate the drone's movement. So it's going to move in space. And then its first run, it's just going to identify, right here, the first run, it's going to identify boundaries, where all the plants are, and it's going to identify what plants are in the field with a simple image classification model that I designed. So daily, it's going to incrementally reduce water usage for each plant through Bluetooth connection to the water pumps, as I discussed before. And then it's going to take moisture values. It's going to take the NDVI values and look at the moisture values that are set for the plant in the field and compare them to the experimentational values. So compare the difference between the two, and based on that, the drone can adjust the water usage within the field for each plant. After that, it takes all those values and sends them to the computer, transmits all those pictures and live video data to the computer, and then a water distribution diagram is generated. So here are some of the results. As I said before, with the simulated size of the field that I was using, which was 400 square feet, and as I said before, that the cost of drip irrigation system could be $2 to $4 per square feet. Drip irrigation system would cost $800 to $1,600 compared to $366 as noted here by this cost table. So now we have this water usage over time. So you can see water usage with the drip irrigation as it should be. It's controlled, it's consistent, no changes except a little bit in the beginning when we were calibrating the water pumps. And then the water usage with the drone is incrementally reducing. But this graph only tells us that water usage was reduced. There's no point if we reduced water usage if plant health didn't increase or stay the same. So now we have this NDVI versus time graph, and NDVI again tells us the health of the plant, and the higher the NDVI within a certain range, the better the health of the plant. So you can see the NDVI with the drone is significantly higher than the NDVI without the drone adjustment, as the NDVI without the drone adjustment stays consistent, while the NDVI with the drone and the drone's adjustment increases over time, which is exactly what we wanted to see. So now just a specific isolated plant growth over time. So we know that the water usage is reduced and we know that the plant health is increased. So now we want to see if the plant growth was going to be hindered by the lack of water. But we saw that the drone's supervision actually maintained the growth of the plant, and there's little to no difference between the graph of the plant growth with drone supervision and control. And then finally, just a model accuracy graph. This was how well the drone was able to identify plants within the field, and we can see that the more the model familiarizes itself with the database, the plants in the field, the more accurate the algorithm's predictions would become. So the more the drone was surveying the field, the more the drone familiarized itself with the plants in the field. The drone reduced water usage over time by 9% while providing the user an in-depth analysis of water distribution throughout a 400 square foot field in my backyard compared to a controlled drip irrigation system. Provided sensor data to the user of progression of plant health day by day uninvasively. So there are a lot of ways we can take this in a future direction, improve upon the accuracy and loss of the algorithm, the ability for the drone to identify plants, increase the size of the field so we can have larger sample sizes and more variation in the data that we that I examined, decreased possibility for short circuits with better ESC covering. So the drone's electronic speed controllers were touching the carbon fiber, and sometimes they could have caused short circuits, so I had to cover them up. Make the PIR sensor, the sensor that was measuring NDVI, have a faster response time, and we would be doing this by removing the sensor cover. So there's this bubble above the sensor. We remove that to get more accurate data, and maybe upgrade the speed or the processor of that sensor. And then making the drone more lightweight, as 450 grams right now. If we can make it lighter, we'd be able to travel significantly faster, which would provide less strain on the motors and improve battery life overall. Thank you.